This video addresses 19 frequently asked questions that may arise when informing a friend or family member that your partner is engaging in narcissistic abuse and that you may require their support, understanding, and assistance. The answers provided are intended to be easy to understand rather than to make them an expert on narcissism. This is so that they can comprehend your situation, as narcissistic abuse can be bewildering for someone who has not personally experienced it and is hearing it for the first time. Starting the conversation. Starting a conversation about your partner's narcissism with a friend or family member can be challenging. One way to begin is by sharing your feelings and concerns about your partner's behavior. Give specific examples of recent actions or words your partner has said or done that made you feel hurt, manipulated, unsupported, or scared. If there is physical abuse, it may be best to hold off on discussing that until a friend or family member asks about it or shows that they are starting to believe you. The goal is to open the conversation, not to expect immediate belief from the other person. It is normal for people to have doubts, as narcissistic abuse is different from domestic violence. If the other person seems interested and not dismissive, you can mention that you have been researching and believe that your partner has narcissistic traits and may even have narcissistic personality disorder. It is important to communicate in a calm and respectful manner, as the other person may be going through a significant shift in their view of your partner and can be experiencing many emotions. You are not qualified to diagnose X. When discussing your partner's behavior with a friend or family member, they may have some knowledge about narcissism or may even be a therapist, but still may not agree with you labeling your partner as a narcissist. This is because the term narcissist is often used informally to describe someone's behavior, but it is also used by some clinicians to describe a person diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. It is important to note that not all therapists or healthcare workers receive in-depth training on narcissistic personality disorder, and if they do, it may not cover all the expressions of narcissism. However, your goal in this conversation should not be to convince the other person to agree with a specific label, but rather to open a discussion and see if they are willing to support you. You can back off and say that your partner has narcissistic traits or is abusive. It is important to remember that the goal of a conversation is to open the discussion and seek support. I don't believe you. It can be extremely difficult and hurtful when someone you trust and respect does not believe you, even with physical evidence. If a person you're talking to is not willing to listen or even blames you for the narcissist's actions, it's best to end the conversation there. Pushing the issue or providing more evidence will only make them more resistant and harder to reach in the future. Try to end the conversation on a positive note and let them know that you will be available if they have any further questions. It's possible that they may do their own research and come back to you with a more open mind. Remember that it's important to surround yourself with people who believe you and want to support you, not those who constantly question you or play devil's advocate. It's important to remember that you are not responsible for the narcissist's behavior and that you have a right to be heard and believed. If a person becomes more receptive later on, you can share specific examples of a narcissistic behavior you have experienced and the impact it had on you. You can also provide them with resources such as a book or a couple of videos that provide information about the impact of narcissistic abuse on victims. Keep in mind that they may not want to read a lot of books or watch long videos, so provide them with the most relevant information they can read and watch right away. Do not expect them to become experts on the subject, but rather aim to use their emotions to get them to support you by showing them the pain and emotional suffering you are going through. If they still do not want to help, even after learning about the impact of narcissistic abuse on victims, it may be an indication that they may not care about you as much as you thought. But you said you were happy. When informing others that you are being abused by your partner, it may be confusing to them, especially if you previously seemed happy and spoke positively about your partner. Explain that the narcissist used charm, flattery, and manipulation in the beginning of a relationship to make you fall in love with them. They may have made grand romantic gestures or given you a lot of attention, which made you feel valued and loved. However, over time, the true nature of a narcissist began to reveal itself, and they started to insult you, devalue you, control you, and emotionally and psychologically abuse you. It's important to note but the narcissist may treat their partner well for years until something changes in the relationship that threatens their image, dominance, control, or the attention they feel they deserve, such as a negative financial change for them, a positive financial change for you, or the addition of a new family member. The narcissist's behavior may then suddenly turn into abuse as a maladaptive coping mechanism against their feelings of insecurity, worthlessness, and inadequacy, and that the situation has now reached a point where you may want to leave a relationship or are seeking help. Then why did you marry them? A person may find it difficult to comprehend why you would marry a narcissist, particularly if there were already issues in the relationship before you got married, or if you dated for a long time before getting married. Explain that it can be challenging for victims to recognize the true nature of a narcissist, especially in the beginning of a relationship. Narcissists are adept at hiding their true selves and can use manipulation, charm, and deceit to gain the trust and affection of their victims. This often causes the victim to not see the warning signs of abuse until it is too late. The abuse may have also been less severe in the beginning of a relationship, and the narcissist may have been more remorseful and promised to change and never repeat their actions. They may even have promised to, or gone to counseling or therapy to make you believe that they will change, just to convince you to move in with him, marry them, or have a child with him. But once you moved in together, got married, or had a child with him, and they felt secure in the relationship that you would not leave them, they dropped the mask and false acts and showed their true self. Provide specific examples of how their behavior changed from before you moved in or got married or had a child to afterward. How before they admitted guilt and promised to change, but now are blaming you for their actions and are refusing to change or seek help. What is narcissism? At this point, your friend or family member may understand that you are being abused, but may not fully understand what narcissism is. They may find it difficult to understand how someone who may be kind to others, possibly even them, can abuse their romantic partner. It's important to not overwhelm them with too much information, but to give them a simple overview of what narcissism is. You can explain that narcissism is a personality disorder or a way of thinking characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance and a lack of empathy towards others. People with narcissism have an excessive need for attention, admiration, and validation, and often have an unrealistic sense of their own abilities and achievements. They can be difficult to interact with because they are often preoccupied with themselves and their own needs, and may not be able to understand or care about the feelings of others. They often refuse to take responsibility for their actions and blame others, and can be very sensitive to criticism. They may be emotionally unstable and may have outbursts of anger or tears, often over small things or perceived slights. Also, you can add that narcissists often have a sense of entitlement, and that narcissism can manifest in different ways and can range from a mild personality trait to a more severe disorder called Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD. So how did X become a narcissist? This can be a sensitive topic, especially if the person you are talking to is a parent or other family member of a narcissist. However, at this point, it is not necessary to go into excessive detail, as the aim is not to discuss how people become a narcissist or to assign blame. You can explain that the exact cause of NPD is not fully understood, but it is thought to be a combination of genetics, environment, and psychological factors. Some people may have a predisposition to NPD, while others may develop it due to childhood experiences or as a way to cope with underlying emotional pain. You can also mention that some researchers believe that certain brain chemistry and structural differences may contribute to the development of NPD, while others point to childhood experiences such as neglect, abuse, or excessive pampering. Additionally, some people may develop NPD as a defense mechanism to cope with underlying emotional pain or insecurity, but that not all is known about narcissism and that more research is needed. But the fact is that your partner is narcissistic and that it is negatively impacting your life. But I never saw you with bruises. Many people think that abuse is only physical, and that if there are no visible marks or injuries, then it is not abuse. But that's not true. Narcissistic abuse is a form of domestic violence that is perpetrated by a person with narcissistic traits. It is often more subtle than physical abuse and can include emotional and psychological tactics such as silent treatment, manipulation, gaslighting, verbal abuse, veiled threats, guilt-tripping, shaming, devaluing, and name-calling. These tactics may not leave physical bruises, but they can have a significant impact on the mental and emotional health of a victim. It's important to understand that abuse can take many forms, and it's not always visible to the eye. What do you mean by subtle abuse? Subtle abuse refers to forms of emotional, psychological, or verbal abuse that are not always obvious or easily recognizable. This type of abuse can be difficult to identify, as it may involve subtle put-downs, backhanded compliments, manipulation that is often disguised as jokes, concern, or sarcasm. The abuser may not make direct, overt threats or acts of violence, but their actions can still cause significant harm to the victim. The victim may not be able to pinpoint exactly what was said or done, but they will feel afraid, hurt, ashamed, or guilty after interacting with the abuser. What is gaslighting? Gaslighting is when someone manipulates you into doubting your own reality and your own perceptions. The abuser will deny things that have happened, make you question your own memories, blame you for things that are not your fault, and alter your environment to make you think you are going crazy or are hallucinating. This can be very confusing and disorientating and can make a victim feel like they're going crazy. The goal of gaslighting is to control and manipulate the victim, and it can have a significant impact on the victim's mental and emotional well-being. You can mention big things, such as them denying you had an argument, or them denying that they broke your stuff, even though they did it right in front of you during the argument, or them hiding and then replacing your phone or car keys, and then claiming you overlooked them in your search. Maybe you did something to upset your partner. It can be difficult to comprehend and accept that someone who is supposed to love you would intentionally harm you without any provocation on your part. However, it is crucial to remember that the decision to abuse is always the responsibility of the abuser, and it is never the victim's fault. Narcissists often blame their behavior on the victim, but it is essential to remember that no matter what the victim does, the narcissist could have chosen not to abuse them and respond differently. While it may be difficult for them, as the emotions or reactions they experience to their ego being threatened may be automatic, the specific actions they take in response to those feelings are a choice. They may know that their actions will or may hurt you, but they do not care at that moment. Later, they may show real or fake remorse, but due to their entitlement and lack of empathy, their remorse or guilt is not enough to cause them to want to change their behavior, and thus the actions will be repeated over and over each time the ego is threatened. Have you gone to couples therapy or marriage counseling? It's understandable to think that couples therapy or marriage counseling can help fix a relationship, but in cases of narcissistic abuse, it's not always effective. Narcissists who may have narcissistic personality disorder have ingrained patterns of behavior that are part of their personality and way of thinking, and unlikely to change. Couples therapy may not address the underlying issues, and the therapist may not recognize the abuse and may even blame the victim for the problems in the relationship. Instead of couples therapy, I may benefit more from seeking individual therapy or leaving the relationship. Have you told them their actions are hurting you? It may seem like a simple solution to tell the abuser that they are causing you harm, but unfortunately, it may not be effective in a relationship with a narcissist. Narcissists often refuse to take responsibility for their actions and frequently blame the victim for the problems in the relationship. They normally refuse to change their behavior and may not understand or care about the impact of their actions on others. Telling a narcissist that they are hurting you and need to change can lead to increased manipulation, gaslighting, and abuse, as a narcissist may now fear and become paranoid that you will expose them or leave them. For a narcissist, protecting their image and false self is vital to their very existence and being protected against feelings of shame and inadequacy. Maybe you just have not given them enough support and time to change. It's important to understand that change is ultimately up to the narcissist. They may make excuses or blame others for their behavior, but the reality is that if they truly wanted to change, they would take immediate and consistent action. Narcissists often believe they are perfect and don't see a need for improvement, making it unlikely for them to seek help or make changes. Narcissistic personality disorder is a deep-seated personality disorder, and it is difficult to change those patterns of behavior and thought. Even if they do go to therapy, they may not be willing to work on themselves and may not make meaningful progress. Threaten them. Telling a narcissist that you will divorce them, take legal action, or involve a family member in hopes of them changing their behavior is not an effective approach. Narcissists often react negatively to perceived threats to their ego or control and may become aggressive or vindictive. They may also use these threats as a way to manipulate and blame the victim for the issues in the relationship. It is important to remember that NPD is a deep-seated personality disorder, and it is unlikely that the abuser will change their behavior or take responsibility for their actions. Threatening to leave a narcissist can also trigger their abandonment fears, and they may increase the abuse and control to force you to stay, or they may take other harmful actions to punish you for making them feel inferior by you wanting to leave them. But how can you love X if they are abusing you? Victims often have mixed feelings about their abuser, such as wanting to leave them yet still love them. This is often due to the intense attention narcissists give the victims in the beginning of the relationship, as well as intermittently to make them stay, which creates an intense bond and emotional feelings in the victim. Additionally, there are often some good times in the relationship, and if the victim has a long history with the abuser, they may have an emotional investment in the relationship. However, just because the victim still loves the abuser does not mean that the abuse is acceptable, that it is the victim's fault, or that the victim must stay in the relationship. A victim may no longer want to be with the abuser, yet still care enough for the abuser to not want to press charges as not to ruin the abuser's life and give them the best incentive and opportunity to change their behavior. Why have you not left X years ago? The question of why you stayed in an abusive relationship for so long normally comes up. It's important to understand that abuse often starts off small and gradually escalates over time. It may not become severe until after you're married or had a child together. There are many reasons why someone may stay in an abusive relationship, such as fear, lack of financial resources, lack of social support, fear of being alone, being isolated from friends and family, and threats of harm or retaliation if they try to leave. See a link in the description for a video that explains in more detail why victims stay. It's important to understand that leaving an abusive relationship is not a simple or easy decision, and that it is a process that takes time and support. Well, just tell X you are leaving and file for divorce. It's important to note that when leaving a narcissist, it can be dangerous to directly tell them. Narcissists may react negatively or even violently to this news, putting the victim at risk. Instead, it is safer to plan an escape discreetly and gather resources such as support from friends and family, money, and important documents. So what do you want from me? Let the person know that you appreciate their support and understanding, that it is helpful when they listen to you, believe you, and check on you regularly, even if it's just a text message asking how you're doing. If you need specific things from them, such as funds, hiding documents or so, be clear about what you want from them. If you're not sure how they can help, be specific about your needs and let them decide where they can help. Watch the video suggested to you now for 10 essential things that should go in your domestic violence escape bag.